1 in 3 is intended for mature audiences. Episodes contain explicit content and may be triggering as they often include violence and other varying forms of abuse such as emotional, psychological, sexual, and physical. In most cases, names have been changed to protect all involved. Please note, statements and opinions of guests do not necessarily reflect those of my own. Hi warriors, welcome to 1 in 3. I'm your host Ingrid. What I'm about to share with you is one of the most fucked up stories I have ever heard in my life. And as you know, I have a domestic violence podcast. Remember, domestic violence doesn't have to be limited to intimate partners. It also includes children and really anyone who is cohabitating under the same roof. This account includes all of it. The details are so vast and gruesome, I'm going to do all of us a favor and break it up into multiple episodes. This is the story of the domestic violence perpetrator, Michelle Knotek. Michelle Knotek, who is known as Shelly by those close to her, was born on April 15, 1954. Her father, Les Watson, at 6 feet 2 inches, was described as handsome, charismatic, and a good businessman. But I'll get more into him later. Shelly's mom, Sharon, was almost the exact opposite. She was an alcoholic who led what others considered a dangerous lifestyle. There was a constant influx of random adults into the lives of Shelly and her 2 younger brothers, Chuck and Paul. This led people to believe Sharon may have been a sex worker. Shelly was just 6 years old when her mother took her and her 3-year-old brother Chuck from California to their father's home in Washington State. 7 years later, in 1967, Sharon was found dead, possibly beaten to death. So now let's get back to Les. He was well known throughout town, in a good way. Believed to occasionally stretch the truth, though, he lied to his future 19-year-old bride, saying he was only 4 years older than her, when in fact it was 10 years. The day after they were married, Sharon, Les's first wife, called to ask, "When are you coming to get these damn kids?" It was shortly after that call that Shelly and Chuck were dropped off, never to see their mother again. Almost immediately, the newlyweds recognized some major behavioral issues in the children. Chuck never spoke. His big sister controlled the narrative and seemed to do all the talking for him. Shelly, on the other hand, was extremely verbal. She had no problem telling her new stepmother that she hated her every single day. By the way, for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to use the same pseudonym, Laura, that author Gregg Olsen used when discussing Shelly's stepmom in his book, If You Tell. Shelly was 13 years old when she received the news of her biological mom's murder. She had no reaction and never even asked about her. It was also at the time of Sharon's death that Paul, the youngest of the 3, came to live in the Watson home. He too displayed behavioral challenges with lack of impulse control and poor social skills. But Shelly would prove to be the worst of them all. Possibly excusable to having a stepmother or even typical teenage angst, Shelly was often disagreeable. She only wanted to do things if they were her idea. She would pout, argue, and even lie to get out of situations she didn't want to be in. Laura recalled Shelly always looked distraught or angry, and she was angry quite often. Nothing ever seemed to appease her. Shelly's troublesome behavior escalated, though. Her lies magnified, she stole, and there's belief she had a hand in arson within the home. The other children, which now included 2 born to Les and Laura, would become subject to sadistic punishments from their sister. Punishments for what, you may be wondering. It could have been something as simple as getting more attention or accolades than Shelly. There were even times she put cut-up pieces of glass in the shoes and boots of the other children. One day, when Shelly was 14 years old, she was taken to a juvenile detention center. While at school earlier that day, she had told administrators she had been raped by her father. As an investigation ensued, the lie was put to rest following a physical exam conducted by a physician. It revealed no evidence of rape whatsoever. The physician informed the Watsons that Shelly needed serious therapy and they should seek out a psychologist. The couple wasted no time. They enrolled in family therapy as well as individualized therapy for Shelly. None of it seemed to help. Shelly admitted no fault for what she had done. In fact, she relished in the attention she received from it. Naturally, the school refused readmittance for the following year. Now, desperate to get Shelly out of the house and into a school, the Watsons looked into private schools. Initially unsuccessful because the schools would research Shelly, they were finally able to get her admitted. The school was close to Laura's parents, so Shelly was shipped off to live with them and attend her new school. It didn't take long for Laura's parents to learn to never let their guard down with Shelly. She was mean, deceitful, and manipulative. She would convince adults she had good intentions only to surprise them with a harsh, despicable reality. For instance, she would gush over smaller children and display a mother-like demeanor around them. Parents willingly left their children with babysitter Shelly. Their children would later tell them how she would lock them in their rooms for the entire time, though. Shelly would volunteer to assist with household chores like washing dishes. Instead of cleaning them, however, she would simply throw them in the trash. Not straying from lies about family, Shelly also told neighbors her grandfather was abusing her. Without hesitation, at the end of the school year, Laura's parents sent Shelly back to the Watson home. Once again, the pressure was on to find a school. Laura, by leaving out some of Shelly's worst offenses, was able to get her admitted to a Catholic boarding school in Oregon. Surely the sisters would be able to straighten her out. Unfortunately, even they were not able to perform a miracle. The sisters detailed how Shelly would wake up screaming in the middle of the night. She destroyed the homework of other girls, she stole, and she even put broken glass into her classmates' shoes. Another school year completed, and another school refused readmittance. Shelly's next target was Les's sister Katie. Katie lived in Pennsylvania with her husband Frank. Laura overheard phone conversations between Shelly and Katie. Shelly would describe how Les was abusive. Laura would call her names and was just mean to her. Instantly, Katie insisted Shelly come visit. While there, Shelly detailed further how terribly she had been treated in the Watson home. Katie therefore arranged for Shelly to stay with them and attend high school there in the fall. The strain Shelly created within Katie and Frank's marriage ultimately ended in a divorce for the two. Where did all this horrific behavior come from? The Watsons, especially Laura, did everything they could to help modify Shelly's behavior. While that included therapy, setting boundaries, engaging her in different activities, and providing consistency and organization by her stepmom, Les had a different approach. He often caved to Shelly's demands and would lavish his princess with whatever she wanted. But Shelly's conduct was beyond that of a spoiled child. Could she have been abused by her biological mother or other adults she was exposed to as a small child? Did she suffer from some consequence of her mother's alcoholism? Or was it learned behavior? Oh, I haven't talked about that part yet. Les's father, George Watson, was a gentleman. Kind. Clearly not the role model Shelly looked to. George's wife, Anna, was tall and large, weighing over 250 pounds. Her stature was intimidating, but her demeanor was more so. She was demanding, never admitted to being wrong, and was so ruthless, no one dare oppose her. Quite the opposite of her husband. She asserted he sleep in a shed in the backyard. The Watson family owned and ran nursing homes. Anna hired 2 women for the homes she oversaw. Those 2 women, whom Anna referred to as her retards, were completely abused. Also enslaving them at her own home, the women were subject to pain and humility. They cleaned the home, scrubbed the floors, and took care of anything Anna forced them to do. But when Anna wanted them to wash her feet or do her hair, she made them immediately stop what they were doing to tend to her. She would punch and kick them or pull their hair if they didn't adhere to her standards. Anna was also known to hold their heads in the toilet and flush it if she were especially upset. While Shelly was obviously a favorite replica of Anna, she too would occasionally be targeted by her grandmother. Claiming Laura did not care for Shelly's hair appropriately, Anna chopped it all off. And instead of being angry with her grandmother, Shelly blamed Laura. It's difficult to speculate which circumstance created the sadistic nature of Shelly, perhaps a combination of things, but she made it quite clear throughout her life exactly how evil of a human being she could be. If you think you have the stomach for it, join me next week for part 2 of this story. Until then, stay strong. And wherever you are in your journey, always remember you are not alone. Find more information, register as a guest, or leave a review by going to the website 1in3podcast.com. That's the number 1, IN, the number 3, podcast.com. Follow 1 in 3 on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 1 in 3 podcast. To help me out, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. 1 in 3 is a .5 Pinoy production. Music written and performed by Tim Crow.